Nintendo finally they announced the latest Legend of Zelda game that's going to be making its way to the Nintendo Switch in 2019 because at launch, we got the Breath of the Wild, and that is a beautiful game that all of us love and worship for its variety, for its quote-unquote realism in comparison to other ones, but now we're going to be getting a remake, a remaster of Link's Awakening, the 1993 classic from the original Game Boy, and we wanted to do a special announcement reaction video because I consider myself a casual The Legend of Zelda fan, but we have people like Ryan McNulty from Boston, Massachusetts, Keith Poshik from London, Ontario, and I should probably say my name, Juan Velas from San Juan, Puerto Rico, taking it over first to Keith Poshik. When you saw that Nintendo Direct, and you saw that trailer play out, you saw Link in the water, you saw the giant egg on top of the mountain. What, my friend, was your reaction to that video?
Was mostly confusion because I'm not one that played Link's Awakening back in the day. That's one of the Zelda games I missed, but I'm really excited about this because this is an opportunity for me to go and check out that game. I've always heard great things about it, and from a distance admired it, especially for the fact like you fought Mario characters in a Zelda game, like really crossover of the century right there. And this is a great opportunity to check it out. I'm excited. I love the new art style. It's a definite change from what they were going with Breath of the Wild. Now you kind of have best of the both worlds on the Switch. Super pumped.
What about you, Ryan? Because I'm assuming you've played this way back in the day, right?
Surprisingly, no. This was one I ended up tackling a little bit later in college. Basically, I just went on a Zelda tear, probably like my junior year in college, where I played all the Zelda games that I had missed prior to probably Ocarina of Time and any ones in between. So the Game Boy Zeldas, I'll be honest, were probably on the lower end of my list of ranking the Zelda games at the time. But since going back, we recently played A Link to the Past. I've really started to grow a greater appreciation for the Game Boy Zelda, speaking of the Oracle games, as well as Link's Awakening. And they are definitely the games that really started the difficult, tough puzzles and that type of challenging aspect of Zelda. So I am really excited, especially with this new art style. Those Game Boy games are definitely ones graphically that, of course, have aged the worst. So they are definitely the ones in need of a remake the most. So I think starting with Link's Awakening is pretty awesome. And it's interesting to note that this appears to be a direct remake, unlike A Link Between Worlds on the 3DS, which was sort of a reimagining of A Link to the Past. The dungeons were different and things like that. From what we can see so far, this appears to be almost a shot-for-shot remake with upgraded graphics. So there's going to be some interesting things that I'm curious to see as we get more information. One thing to note, in the Game Boy games, due to the limited amount of buttons, you kind of had your A button and your B button, and one of which was your sword. So there were interesting puzzle combinations where you could actually replace your sword with another item. So given the fact that you have a lot more buttons on the Switch, they'll probably have the sword as its own standard button along with other items you can switch in and out. So I'm curious to see if that changes any puzzles going forward. But it should help the overall experience, because I would say that one of the drawbacks of Link's Awakening is you are constantly hitting the pause button to switch up your items to solve puzzles. So I think we're in for a much smoother experience of a game that is pretty underrated for as far as the Zelda series goes. So it's a great thing that we're bringing this game back to the forefront for a lot of people who didn't experience it will now get to experience it.
That seems like a quality of life thing they would do for this new game. But at the same time, I mean, look at Nintendo Switch Online, I think it's called. I don't know the official name for it. Like, they have basically emulated a Nintendo controller for that using one of the Joy-Cons. So the Nintendo controller and the Game Boy had the same amount of buttons. It's not that far out of the realm of possibility to just assume that they would just re-emulate the Game Boy style at the same time.
I would hope not. Given that since it's
Yeah.
getting the remake treatment versus just a direct port, I'm hoping that they fix that up. I'm sure they'll find a way. There's way more buttons on the Switch, so you should hopefully be able to equip extra items so you're not constantly hitting that pause button over and over.
That's what I'm hoping
Take out
happens.
those shame jumps.
Oh yeah, dude. Like, I'm fascinated by that because I have no previous context. I said this in my own YouTube channel. I actually thought, like, when I was a kid, that A Link to the Past and Link's Awakening were the same game. Just like that Link's Awakening was a downgraded version of the Super Nintendo game. So when I saw the trailer and I see all these Nintendo characters, the first thing people told me is, like, don't look up information because that's part of the fun. Apparently something happens in the game where things then end up making sense. And I don't want to know because I'm excited for the fact that it's coming out in 2019. And the closing thing about this is that this is a big deal because this isn't like the Resident Evil 2 a remake where we're going back to the PS1 and then porting that to modern consoles. This is the Game Boy. So just think about the fact that we're not only doing that. Usually they would do it for the DS or the 3DS, but no, this is the first time from my recollection that they take a Game Boy game and they do a full-on remake, remaster. We still don't know all the little details about it. What?
Let's go, Pikachu says hello.
Well, yeah, but that does have enough differences from the gameplay standpoint because you're removing the wild battles and stuff. And I get what you guys are talking about, but the fact of the matter is that even if we got a new Pokemon game, it would still probably have a similar format. But here we are, like, you could pick Ocarina of Time, Skyward Sword, which was the rumored thing for a while. We got the Wind Waker or HD remaster, whatever, on the Wii U. So they have a ton of options. So if anything, for me, this and maybe Zelda 2 seemed like the least likely to get this treatment, yet it did. So you, Ryan, as the Zelda fanatic, do you think that this is the best and most surprising option in a good way for the Switch, or would have you preferred they tackled something else for 2019?
I think the Game Boy games were a great place to start. I'd love to see a Zelda 2 remake because that is another game that I happen
Just
to
added
like
to
that a lot of
Nintendo
people
Switch
hate.
Online.
Well, no,
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
is.
as far as a full-on remake, I think Zelda 2 probably needs it more than most. But the Game Boy games would definitely be the second best choice. So Link's Awakening, obviously, great place to start. Like I said, most people probably haven't had a chance to really appreciate this game, and they should do the Oracle games next. But of course, this is kind of like the in-between. Now that the 3DS is kind of pretty much that ship has sailed, the Switch is serving as the handheld console and the main console. And normally, after a mainstream main console Zelda game, you get the handheld title in between. So that's what we're getting with this game. And it's just weird that it's on the same system, but the Switch is really perfect for that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm really happy this is taking place, and needless to say, we will probably play Link's Awakening, the original one, at some point during the year, even if it's a portion of it, leading up to the
it's
this
happening.
release. Yeah,
You're
Ryan,
taking out all 8 dungeons, Juan. We're
Oh,
going to make
boy.
it happen.
I'm afraid because you keep talking
Is
about
there a
puzzles.
B scenario? Because he won't do it then.
Oh, come on, come on! I'm actually
Yeah.
going to be doing that with the Resident Evil 2 remake. But everybody, please let us know, what do you think about this? What do you think about the chibi art style? I think that the three of us, even though we didn't directly talk about it, it's not something that we necessarily complain about, because when you look back at something like the Wind Waker, people hated that when it was first announced. Yet now it's regarded as one of the top 5 favorite Zelda games, right? So just give it a shot. We've seen only a trailer. Like, let's wait for maybe
Yeah.
like a
HD 2D Zelda. I love it.
Exactly,
Agreed.
man. This opens up so much for other possible Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, or like Super Nintendo games that could be reimagined. Think of Zombies Ate My Neighbors or other awesome games from those years. I know it's difficult, Keith, but just picture that. So for everybody listening and watching, which other classic Game Boy game do you think should get this type of treatment? So don't be afraid to follow us on social media at Cast of the Past on all of the above. We publish a brand new podcast episode each and every Sunday. This is not a podcast episode. This was a special thing because it's a special moment. It's not every day that out of nowhere Nintendo announces something like this. So don't forget that we have an upcoming episode about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 taking place this Sunday on youtube.com/A Cast of the Past and A Cast of the Past on your preferred podcast listening platform. So, folks, that has been it for another, well, this is not another exciting episode, but for a special occasion on A Cast
To the
Past.
See, you guys weren't ready because it's not an
wasn't.
episode.
Yeah, it's not
So
a
it's like,
normal
what's going on
episode. Threw
here?
me off.
Thrown
Yeah.
off.
It's okay. Thanks for watching and listening, everybody.
Get those gem jumps.